waiting. $167 billion in cash, not invested. This is the story of how cash, boring, simple cash, can make you richer than any investment. And why the richest people in the world follow 3 cash levels that 99% of people never understand.
Warren Buffett, 89 years old, the Oracle of Omaha, one of the richest men alive. And he's sitting on $128 billion in cash. The year is 2024. The most closely watched investor on the planet is doing something that is making Wall Street furious. Not because he's losing money or made a bad bet, but because he's doing almost nothing at all.
Warren Buffett, the man who turned to sell companies that thousand companies have run out of data, weighs $1 billion in cash, short-term treasuries, just waiting.
And the finance world is nearly unanimous. It's a mistake, too cautious, too much drag, leaving too much on the table. Regular people's retirement accounts cut in half. Millions of Americans watch their life savings evaporate.
I can't believe it.
Why isn't Buffett buying?
Where is Berkshire?
Why isn't he saving the market?
The media is asking, where is Warren Buffett?
The analysts are talking, the pundits are writing, the blogs are publishing. Buffett has lost his edge. The old man is scared. The greatest investor of the 20th century cannot keep up with the 21st.
But Warren knows something they don't.
My name is Sam, and if you've ever stared at your bank account, really stared at it, and felt that creeping, uncomfortable feeling that you either have too much sitting idle or not nearly enough to survive, this video is for you. Because that feeling, that uncertainty, it isn't a math problem. It's a framework problem. And the framework you were given, the one school taught you, the one your financial advisor probably reinforced, is incomplete, dangerously incomplete. Today, we fix that. Here's what nobody in the financial industry wants you to fully understand. Cash isn't one thing. It never was. It is 3 completely different tools that happen to look identical in your bank account. Same dollars, completely different jobs. And if you treat them as one undifferentiated pile, if you let them blur together in a single savings account, you will misuse them. Guaranteed. You'll hold too little when you need protection. You'll hold too much when you need to act. Or worst of all, you'll watch the window open and close and be left standing on the outside with your hands empty. The framework that changes everything breaks cash into 3 levels: survival, stability, offense. 3 layers, 3 completely different missions. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Almost every personal finance conversation you've ever had stops at level 1. That's like loading 1 bullet into a rifle and calling yourself a soldier. It's a start. It is nowhere near enough. Before we go further, you need to understand something about where financial advice comes from, because it shapes everything. The people giving you advice about cash, the brokers, the fund managers, the advisors on commission, they are paid to keep your money moving. Every dollar sitting in cash is a dollar not being managed, not generating a fee, not justifying the relationship. So of course, the default advice is to minimize cash, to deploy it, to get it in the market. That's not cynicism. That's just following the money. And the people who actually understand cash as a weapon, not a placeholder, not a waiting room for future investments, they think about it differently. They always have. Level 1, survival cash, the absolute baseline, 3 to 6 months of core living expenses, liquid, accessible, non-negotiable. The average American household spent roughly $5,800 a month in 2026. 3 months is $17,400. 6 months is $35,000. Those numbers sound large until you unexpectedly being handed a medical bill, until your car mechanic tells you repair cost $4,200, and your company layoffs you. Your application was not selected. A 2026 Federal Reserve survey found that roughly 4 in 10 American adults would struggle to cover an unexpected $1,000 expense without selling something. Here's what the emergency fund actually does. It protects you from disaster. But what it really does is this. It changes how you think. When survival cash exists, when it's funded and sitting there, something shifts. You stop making decisions from fear in crisis. A layoff becomes a transition, not a collapse. And when people don't have it, they reach for credit cards. The average credit card interest rate in early 2026, 22%. A $3,000 car repair a card just because the floor wasn't funded. The absence of level 1 cash isn't neutral. It has a price, and that price compounds.
Level 2, stability cash. 12 to 22 months of living expenses, held deliberately, on top of your emergency fund, on top of your retirement contributions, not instead of anything, on top of everything. This is the layer that gives you walk-away power, the ability to leave, to refuse the mediocre deal, the bad job, the hostile negotiation, because your survival doesn't depend on saying yes. You cannot put that on a spreadsheet. But let me try. He's doing everything right on paper, maximizing his 401k, investing every spare dollar in index funds. His net worth is climbing, his retirement projections look solid, but his cash on hand? 2 months of expenses, maybe 3 if he's careful. Everything else is deployed. Then it happens. Layoffs, culture shift, a new manager who doesn't see his value. He knows he needs to leave. But here's the problem. He can't afford to wait. He can't afford to turn down the mediocre offer that comes first. So he takes it. Lateral move, same dysfunction, different building. Because the math of his situation, his actual financial position, left him no other real option. Now run it again. Same person, same layoff threat, same toxic manager, completely different posture. He waits for the right role. He turns down 2 offers that aren't quite right. 3 months later, he lands at $148,000. That $36,000 raise isn't a small thing. That's potentially the single highest return financial decision he makes all year. Cut to the number on a screen, not a portfolio value, not a stock price, just a salary. $148,000. That's what stability cash actually buys. Not safety, agency.
And now, the Buffett level. Level 3, offensive cash.
There's a pattern in every major market crash in modern history, and it's not the pattern most people look for. The people who came out ahead weren't the ones who predicted the crash.
They weren't more sophisticated. They weren't reading better charts or running better models. They just had cash when nobody else did.
That's it. That's the whole edge. The headlines are apocalyptic. Financial forums are full of panic. Everyone is selling. The word unprecedented is being used so many times it stops meaning anything. This person has a number in their head. Not a prediction, not a hot tip, just a cash reserve set aside before any of this started, waiting patiently for exactly this moment. While the first person sells, paying the price of having no options, this person is buying. Quality assets at panic prices. 6 months later, are back to where they were and climbing higher. The opportunity was real. The window was short. And it went to the people who were prepared. Berkshire Hathaway, late 2024, $167 billion.
Buffett isn't confused. He isn't scared. He isn't behind. He is waiting.
He has described cash in various forms over decades as a call option with no expiration date. You pay a small carrying cost to hold it. In return, you get the right to act decisively, at any moment, without a loan application, without selling something else first, without asking anyone's permission. That's the real return on offensive cash, not 4% in a savings account. The option value to being able to say yes when everyone else is being forced no. Now let's deal with the objection that never goes away.
Cash loses to inflation. Every year you hold it, it's worth less. You're bleeding purchasing power and calling it strategy.
That's true, and it's also incomplete.
Yes, inflation at 3% costs you purchasing power. Yes, the S&P 500 has historically returned around 10% annually. Yes, there's a real gap. But the argument treats opportunity cost as a single number, the return you miss in the market, when the actual calculation is far more complicated. Research from the National Bureau of Economic Research found that all cash homebuyers pay, on average, 11% less for the same property as buyers who need a mortgage. 11%. On a $400,000 home, that's $44,000. Not because they negotiated harder, because cash closes fast, and sellers know it. A financed offer can fall through at the last minute. That certainty has a price, and the seller absorbs it every single time. Here's the hidden cost that never makes it into the standard argument against cash.
Sell everything now, it's crashing.
The real danger of being fully invested isn't missing out on gains in a bull market. It's what happens when you need liquidity during a crash and you don't have any. Your portfolio is down 30%. Something in your life, a job loss, a medical bill, a home repair that cannot wait, requires $40,000. You have one option. Sell. Lock in the loss permanently. Miss the recovery entirely. Pay not just the $40,000 you need today, but the $80, $100 those shares would have been worth when the market came back. That's not theoretical. That's exactly what happened to millions of households in 2020. They went in fully invested, with thin cash buffers. They sold near the bottom. They missed one of the fastest recoveries in market history, not because they made a bad prediction, because they had no other choice.
So let's make this real. 3 moves, starting today. CFO level thinking. Move 1. Separate your cash mentally before you separate it physically. Give every dollar a job.
Survival cash is untouchable. Stability cash is your walkaway fund, your career insurance. Offensive cash is patient capital, waiting for a specific type of moment, not sitting there because you haven't gotten around to investing it. Move 2. Recalculate what opportunity cost actually means for your situation. The standard math, 5 to 6% foregone returns, is real but incomplete. When you add the 11% real estate discount, the career leverage, the crash buying ability, the cost of holding cash looks a lot more like the price of admission to a completely different level of financial decision making. Move 3. Audit your advice. Understand how your advisor gets paid. A fee-only advisor has no reason to push you out of cash. An assets under management advisor earns less when you hold more cash. That's not an accusation. That's a fact. Follow the incentives. They'll tell you more than the pitch ever will. Here's what this all comes down to. The financial system was not designed to help you hold cash. It was designed to keep your money moving. Through products, through managers, through fees. Every piece of conventional wisdom pushing you toward full deployment, every article, every advisor, every algorithm exists inside that structure. That doesn't make investing wrong. It makes unexamined advice dangerous. The investors who consistently come out ahead aren't the ones who found better stocks. They're the ones who had options when other people had none.
Survival cash keeps you solvent. Stability cash keeps you free. Offensive cash turns other people's crises into your opportunities.
Look at your cash right now. Not your net worth, not your portfolio, your liquid, accessible cash. Because the real question was never whether cash earns enough. It was whether you had enough cash to make the right move when it mattered most.